we're coming on the air with new details on the murder charges being brought against 5 police officers in the killing of Tyree Nichols. Listen.
This was wrong. This was criminal.
We are live in Memphis, where people are bracing for the release of body cam footage being described as heinous, appalling, and flat out wrong. And in just the last couple of minutes, you've got even the president now calling for accountability here. That's not the only thing we're hearing from President Biden on something totally different, saying he's going to veto everything in the Republican economic plan if it threatens chaos. He says new numbers out today show his plan works. So why aren't people all that psyched about where the economy's headed? And the CEO of Southwest, one-on-one with our own Lester Holt with the airline, facing a new investigation over its epic holiday meltdown, their plan to fix things. And my one-on-one conversation with a top Meta official who's explaining why exactly the company is letting former President Trump back on Facebook and Instagram. And later in the show, we'll tell you about the girl with the list, how she is sparking some honest conversations around pregnancy and childbirth and what might be getting left out of those chats. That's coming up in just a little bit. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we're coming on the air with new details and a new statement from President Biden about the fate of those 5 former Memphis police officers involved in the death of 29-year-old Tyree Nichols. All 5 are now in jail. They are charged with second-degree murder. The district attorney today announcing this news and saying that footage from the officer's body cam video, which has been described as extremely graphic, is going to be released tomorrow night. An attorney for the family has said the video reminded him of the beating of Rodney King, has said Nichols was basically a human piñata. The head of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations today saying, simply put, this should not have happened.
I'm sickened by what I saw and what we've learned through our extensive and thorough investigation. I've seen the video. In a word, it's absolutely appalling.
All 5 officers have also been charged with aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, official misconduct, and official oppression in a case that is raising questions about police accountability and police reform, including from attorneys for the Nichols family tonight, saying in part that the news today of these charges gives us hope as we continue to push for justice for Tyree, saying he died in a particularly disgusting manner that points to the desperate need for change and reform. President Biden is echoing that call for accountability. In just the last couple of minutes, out with a new statement saying Tyree Nichols' family deserves a swift, full, and transparent investigation into his death. Nichols died in the hospital after a traffic stop ended in a foot chase and then a confrontation with police when they tried to stop him. Early findings in an autopsy report commissioned by the family say Nichols suffered extensive bleeding and was severely beaten before he died. All of it renewing this bigger discussion we've been having for years about excessive force, brutality in this country, with the death of George Floyd igniting protests and raising questions about accountability writ large. And it's true that the officers' firings, the public statements, these charges have come a lot quicker than in previous cases, with the district attorney today saying, yes, this investigation has been expedited. None of it, of course, changes the fact that this 29-year-old, the Tyree Nichols, is dead. Joining me now is Danny Savalas and Antonia Hilton. Antonia, I'll start with you live on the ground in Memphis here. One of the big turning points in cases similar to this that we've seen before is video of the incident. This video in particular is not just going to be incredibly important and significant because it will help us answer some questions on the timeline, including how long did officers wait before calling for help when it became clear that Nichols had been not responsive, essentially. It is also, by every account from every person who has seen it, incredibly graphic and will be disturbing and triggering for so many people.
That's right, Hallie. I'm bracing to have to watch it myself, and every single person that I've spoken to in Memphis over the last 2 days has said the same to me. And when I talked to officials ahead of the announcement of charges today, they told me that they were going to be very intentional about first indicting these officers, getting them in custody before people had to face what's in that video, because they wanted to make sure that this community knew that they recognized how horrific it is and that they took immediate action. They wanted that sense of transparency, that sense of accountability there. But there's also some nerves among community members here that because of how quickly this all transpired, they got fired. They didn't have to beg for people to be relieved from their duties, that this investigation, that multiple layers of, agencies are here working on this, that all of the, expediting factors in all this, they're grateful for it, but it's also frightened them because it's not typically how Black communities feel that they are treated in these cases, it's left them wondering, how terrible is this going to be? How awful is this video that all of these forces, all of these agencies are here and they're acting so fast? What does it mean that we are, as a community, about to go through? And I've talked to moms, I've talked to school teachers, I even spoke to one police officer who was very visibly emotional about all of this. They feel, all of them, incredibly betrayed, and they have questions about the timeline, as you mentioned, but they also want to know more about the culture of policing here in Memphis, about what possible reforms might be necessary now, because they are really preparing for the worst, Hallie.
In the last couple of minutes, Antonia, we have heard from two of the officers' defense attorneys tonight who say they have not seen the video themselves. They haven't reviewed it. Here's what one of them had to say about one of his clients, Desmond Mills.
And not only is Mr. Mills obviously devastated to find himself charged with a crime, but as somebody who is on the other side of law enforcement, somebody who has been in charge of keeping our community safe, to be accused of something like this hurts him on another level.
They were quick to tell reporters that they didn't really have a lot of information yet, again, about 24 hours before this footage is set to be released.
We're missing so much information, particularly, for me, Hallie, it's about how all of this got started in the first place. So we understand that on January 7th, Tyree Nichols is pulled over for recklessly driving. That's what we've been told. We haven't seen footage of what that looked like. And then that this all escalates. At one point, he runs away on foot. We also hear that at points he asks officers questions, that he himself appears to have been confused about why he was actually pulled over, about what was going on. And so there are a lot of questions about the nature of this stop, whether it was legal or not in the first place. But something that really stands out to our team is that all 5 officers are facing the exact same charges.
Yeah.
They range from misconduct and oppression to aggravated kidnapping. And then, of course, second-degree murder charges, which are the charges people were most, anxious to see come down. But all 5 of them are being seen as equally responsible for what happened to Tyree Nichols. And the DA said they're open, potentially, to even more charges. Hallie.
That's an important point, with the DA saying specifically today that while all played individual and different roles in what happened to Tyree Nichols, he believes that they are all responsible. Antonia Hilton, thank you for starting us off tonight in Memphis. Let me bring in now Danny Savallo. So, Danny, Antonia mentioned the second-degree murder charge for all 5 of these now former officers. What is the prosecution going to have to prove to get a conviction?
It's interesting. This Tennessee statute is short on wording. It simply says a killing and with knowledge. And that knowledge, according to the courts in Tennessee, means that the killing was done with the knowledge that whatever you were doing was substantially likely to bring about somebody's death. So this is a similar burden as other second-degree murders in other states. As you can see right there, second-degree murder, the lead count, because it is a Class A felony in Tennessee, and it carries with it a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years, and a statutory maximum sentence of 60 years. So if convicted, they will automatically, just for that count alone, be spending 15 years incarcerated in prison. So this is going to be a lot of different fronts for the defense that they're going to have to defend against. Some of the other charges, oppression is basically just using the color of law, color of your role as a police officer, your position as a police officer, to violate someone's rights. So a big spectrum of charges here, a lot for the defense to take on for sure.
Well, you say that. We haven't even seen this video yet, but based on the descriptions of those who have seen it, including the district attorney, the people close to the family who have watched this, it is going to be horrifying. How would a defense strategy even come together for these officers here?
Yeah, a couple things that were revealed during the press conference is we're apparently going to be dealing with not only body camera, but what they call pole cameras. And those are
multiple angles.
Exactly. I believe it's SkyCop is the company in Memphis that installs these cameras that look like those little black domes that you'll see in an office building or outside, and it just captures video. Sometimes it's triggered by a gunshot sound. Other times it's rolling at all times. But what's important about that is that you're going to have two perspectives. One is going to be the rather jumpy body cam video, which is usually high def, but often, it can bounce around because it's attached to the officer. But you're also apparently going to get an over-the-head view, which together could be absolutely devastating for the defense. And one of the things we're hearing pretty uniformly is that it is, as you say, truly gruesome, and that could be really damaging to the defense. I imagine there may even be some officers, attorneys, after they view this video, that either privately or publicly may push for a plea deal as soon as possible.
And then the key questions again, and this keeps coming up, but the idea that today the district attorney dropped this hint that there was some period of time before an ambulance was called, some sort of waiting period of time. Not getting specific on that, but that is something that the video will presumably show. Danny Savalos, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I know we'll be talking again in just about 24 hours. Right before we came on the air, we found out that Georgia Governor Brian Kemp declared a 15-day state of emergency across that state and is deploying 1,000 National Guard troops in anticipation of more protests there over a proposed police training facility in Atlanta. Remember, we talked about this on this show not too long ago. Organizers and activists demonstrating against it call it Cop City. They've been asking city leaders to stop plans to build this $90 million police training center, with protests turning violent over the weekend after one demonstrator was shot and killed by police. Now, the state of emergency in Georgia will be in effect until February 9th, unless it gets renewed by the governor. We're watching that. Some breaking news out of the Pentagon to share with you tonight in just the last couple of minutes. Two senior administration officials say a U.S. assault operation in Somalia killed a senior ISIS leader and 10 other ISIS fighters. Officials say they don't believe any civilians were hurt or killed in this operation. But Courtney Kuby, our Pentagon correspondent, is joining us now. And Courtney, a significant attack on ISIS capabilities here. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. So there were two things about this that were really significant or different. One is the target, Bilal al-Sudani. He was a senior ISIS leader in Somalia, known to the U.S. government for more than a decade now. He was believed to not only be someone who facilitated ISIS fighters in Somalia, but was attempting to help support financially and other ways ISIS fighters outside the area, including as far away as in Afghanistan. The second part about this that's a little bit unusual is this was a very coordinated operation by the U.S. military on the ground in Somalia. The U.S. military does have a presence there. It's small, but it tends to be there in support of the Somali military. In this case, this was a more unilateral counter-terror mission specifically targeting this ISIS fighter. And not only was he killed, but 10 others who were described by senior administration officials as ISIS operatives were also killed in this. Now, the goal for this mission initially was to try to capture him, but according to the officials, things got pretty heated on the ground there, and in some sort of during this attempt to take him in, he was killed in this operation. We know very little about the U.S. military component at this point, Hallie, other than it was an assault operation that had been planned and rehearsed for many months, which sort of brings us back to some of these other large-scale, very known, well-known U.S. military operations in the recent past, like the raid that killed Osama bin Laden or Baghdadi in Syria several years ago. We're hoping to get more details on that, but this sounds as if it was that sort of an assault operation with a military team that went in on the ground, and they ended up taking out this ISIS fighter.
Courtney Kuby with that breaking news out of the Pentagon court. Thank you very much for that. In the last couple hours, we're seeing President Biden taking a victory lap after some new numbers showing that our economy here in this country grew by about 3% over the last few months. Watch.
I'm not sure, and I mean it sincerely, the news could have been any better. I don't think it's unfair to say that this is all evidence that the Biden economic plan, because y'all, is actually working.
So check out this chart, because you might have seen this. It's significant because it tells us a lot about today's numbers. It shows that the U.S. is pretty much on track for where it was headed before the pandemic. Look at this. This dotted line is what economists, the red dotted line there, that's the direction, that's kind of the trajectory that economists for the government thought we'd be on right about now. The blue line, the thicker blue line, that's what actually happened. You see that big dip during the pandemic, and look at where it is now. So given that, why aren't more people psyched about this? Where is the big celebration? Because the markets look good. They're all in the green. Nothing crazy high, but still in the green. Or how about one economist who's telling our team the country is sure to have a difficult 2023? Well, that is whiplash, because that is kind of a bummer. Brian Chung is joining us now. And look, GDP is not a great predictor of what's going to happen next. But help us understand this question. Why isn't this a good thing that more people are celebrating?
Well, it might not be a good thing because that chart that you just showed, maybe that line starts to go down in 2023. And that is what some economists are perhaps expecting this year because of the combo of high inflation, which has come down but remains high, as well as the Federal Reserve, which is continuing to keep its foot on the pedal, trying to slow this economy by raising interest rates, which, by the way, they're expected to do again next week. It seems like economists are expecting a 0.25 percentage point interest rate increase. And there are just so many factors in this economy when you think about the fact that, yes, those GDP numbers did show the American economy growing in the last quarter. But again, inflation is still high. There's a lot of concern about what's happening in the labor market. A lot of employers are still looking for jobs. But you have some economists, including inside the Federal Reserve, saying the unemployment rate is likely to go up this year. And we don't really know what the impact of the Fed's rate hikes are going to be. Keep in mind, they raised interest rates to slow this economy last year, but the full bite of that won't be known for quite some time.
When it comes to the Fed, we've got one economist telling our team that hope for a soft landing is alive, right? Meaning maybe we can avoid a recession by getting inflation down without making sure a bunch of people lose their jobs, right? That's like the ideal. But saying that the Fed's track record for achieving this is not encouraging. Why is there a lack of confidence here on that front?
Yeah, well, when you take a look at history, it is indeed the case that it hasn't really been done, raising interest rates to slow the economy without any sort of damage in the employment side of things. When you look at, for example, the last time we saw inflation this high, that was in the 1980s. Well, the unemployment rate went up to above 11%. Above 11%. That's really high. Where we're at right now, we're at 3.5%, and the Federal Reserve is projecting that as they raise rates, that will go up to about 4.5%, but that would equate to still about 1.6 million people losing their jobs. So that's a very serious thing. But we have to remember, there have been cases where the Federal Reserve was able to raise interest rates and lower inflation without a substantial uptick in unemployment. It happened in the mid-1990s, but inflation was much lower then. For what it's worth, I asked that question to the Fed chair in the last press conference in December. He said, quote, "I wish there were a completely painless way to restore price stability. There isn't. This is the best we can do." Not necessarily something that bodes very well, Hallie.
Brian Chung, thank you very much. We showed you how the president was talking about the economy today, pointing to the positive. He's also on offense, going after Republicans for their hardline stance on what to do come June when we hit the so-called debt ceiling. Republicans want something in return for making sure that the U.S. doesn't default on our bills. They want spending cuts. They want the president to come to the table to get to a deal.
What in God's name would the Americans give up the progress we've made for the chaos they're suggesting? I don't get it. This nation has gone through too much. We've come too far to let that happen. I will not let it happen. Not on my watch. I will veto everything they send us.
Joining us now is Mike Memoli. Listen, that's a real serious sort of threat from the president. The GOP has made their own threats here, but all of this, this is like the pre-appetizer course to the main event. Like, this is the amuse-bouche to, like, the fight that's going to happen in June. So it's annoying to me that we're in January and we're already spending time talking about this debt limit fight because we're going to be doing that for the next 6 months. So I don't mean annoying, but I just mean, like, you know, man.
It's the world we live in. Yeah. But take this event today. Lather, rinse, repeat. This is it. This is sort of the strategy for the White House for the next year, really, as President Biden waits to see who his Republican opponent is going to be. But to your point, there's the most predictable potential train wreck in Washington on the tracks here. And what the White House has been trying to do, not just now, but going back to before the midterm elections, is to put Republicans on the spot. Okay, you want to cut spending? Tell us how you're going to do it. Is it going to be from entitlement programs like Medicare, Social Security, the third rail of American politics as it's on? Is it defense spending, an issue that divides Republicans, right? Some of the senior appropriators on the Senate side they actually want to keep the military spending increasing compared to the rest of the domestic budget. And then are there other programs that Republicans want to potentially cut here? That's really the argument that the White House is trying to do is, all right, we'll have a debate with you, but you need to come up with a plan first. You need to put it in writing. And in the absence of a plan, the president's going to call out some of the specific ideas that have been put forth by, like, Rick Scott, who says everything in the federal budget should actually just sunset every couple of years and have to restart. So this is sort of the political fight that the White House wants to have. Here's the problem, Hallie. Democrats don't necessarily have, for instance, 60 votes in the Senate to also pass a clean debt ceiling. So this is eventually going to have to be a negotiation. And the players at the table are very different than 10 years ago when we got very close to a default, but then pulled back at the last minute. And that's the real risk here, is that they may think they have the political upper hand, but at the end of the day, they got to get to a deal.
Well, we're on the record with the warning here, Mike, in January. Let's talk again in May and see where things are. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. The jury in the Alec Murdoch double murder trial is getting their first look at the graphic footage from first responders. And they're hearing the 911 call of the night Murdoch's wife and son were killed. Remember, this is part of what folks down south are calling the trial of the century. And here you see Sergeant Daniel Green holding the shotgun that he says Murdoch was holding once he got there. Murdoch says he only grabbed the gun after calling 911. The judge has ruled that we are not allowed to see the footage, but you can hear it, and you can see Murdoch reacting to his own words that day. Here it is.
They are dead on that.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks
like.
That was Murdoch on a call with his brother at the scene. He later got emotional when the sergeant described the bloody bodies of his wife, Maggie, and son, Paul. Katie Beck is in Walterboro, South Carolina. And one thing that the sergeant that we showed lifting that gun mentioned is that right when he got there, Murdoch immediately brought up something that happened back in 2019 when a girl died after his late son was allegedly driving the family's boat drunk. Why did that even come up? Why does the prosecution find that such a notable point?
Well, I think the prosecution is hammering this point because it does seem a bit peculiar that someone would show up and you'd already have a reasonable explanation for how this happened. He actually tells the sergeant right then and there, he says, I think I know why this happened. My son's been receiving threats. It's about the boat crash. It has to be about the boat crash. That was the second time he had said that. He'd actually told a 911 dispatcher that on the phone just minutes earlier, on the phone with the dispatcher, and says, I think this might have to do with the boat crash. With the boat crash, my son Paul, has been receiving threats. He may have even been assaulted. He said he got punched as a result of this boat crash taunting. So it does seem that the prosecution is trying to draw down on that point, saying, doesn't it seem odd to you that the first thing out of his mouth when a police officer starts to ask questions is, I know who did this?
There's a lot of interest, too, in whether Murdoch had blood on his shirt and the way he was acting at the scene, right?
Yes, and actually both sides have brought up the blood. It seems as though the prosecution is going to bring that up as a way of saying that he perhaps changed his clothes, that, if he had in fact touched these bodies to check for signs of life, as he said he did, wouldn't he have had some blood on his clothes? The defense making the point that, hey, if he were there, if he were the one who pulled this trigger, that blood spatter would have been intense. It would have been covering him from head to foot. He was wearing a white T-shirt and shorts, and not a single police officer reported seeing any blood on him. So both sides are kind of using that for different purposes at this point. I think it's pretty clear he did not have any blood on his clothing.
What's the defense doing today to try to sort of sow doubt in what the first responders are saying?
Well, the defense team is now kind of pointing out the fact that maybe this evidence wasn't preserved as well as it could have been. There was a lot of people walking through the crime scene that night, pointing out the fact that they didn't have rubber coverings over their shoes, that there were tire prints that kind of got washed away by the rain. Did they do their best to preserve and collect evidence was certainly a point the defense was trying to drive today, as well as saying, you guys had a target on Alec Murdoch from the minute you arrived. You named him a suspect before you had any evidence that pointed to him. You didn't start a real search for a suspect. You never have, and the suspect is still at large. That is a defense theory. Here's some of that questioning on the stand today.
And you think that's standard operating procedure?
Well, you do your best not to contaminate anything.
And this is your best. You're not trying to solve a crime. You're processing a scene.
I'm not processing anything.
You don't know what you're doing.
I just told you what I was doing, sir.
Now, prosecutors have said they are going to have more than enough forensic evidence to prove Alec Murdoch's guilt. Legal experts say that the evidence in this case is pretty circumstantial. So this witness testimony that we're hearing now will matter. It will have an impact because the jury is going to be weighing that credibility and factoring in all of those things in a cumulative picture when they make their decision. There's not really a smoking gun, so to speak. There's not a ton of the evidence that we normally would see from a prosecution. There isn't surveillance video. There isn't eyewitness accounts. They don't have the murder weapon. As we said, some of these tire tracks were washed away. DNA evidence, blood spatter doesn't exist. So they are going to be relying on this testimony and how credible they believe these witnesses are. Hallie.
Katie Beck, live for us. They're in Walterboro, South Carolina, a community where a lot of people know the Murdochs, Katie, have connections to them or know somebody who does. Thank you very much for that. Coming up here on the show, the CEO of Southwest talking exclusively with Lester Holt about that holiday hot mess, what Southwest is now trying to do to get customers back, and how Lester pressed him. Plus, NASA says the Earth will have a very close encounter with an asteroid tonight. Should we be worried? Spoiler, probably not, but it's still interesting. Stay with us. 5 things coming up. Within just the last hour, NBC News is now hearing from the CEO of Southwest Airlines, speaking exclusively with our own Lester Holt on what they're doing to try to make sure that anybody who flies that airline doesn't have to deal with all the delays we saw back in December, that huge mess during those winter storms. Listen to some of that conversation.
I think what people wonder when they book with you now, will you be able to fulfill the obligation? What does it look like? Could this happen again?
Well, we'll do everything short-term, now, immediate, long-term to make sure that this does not happen again. We've already put things in place like an extraordinary level of monitoring in our network operational center. We've spun up a group of about 100 extra crew schedulers that we can use on demand. We're looking at our de-icing procedures top to bottom. We're buying extra engine covers in case of tremendously cold weather. At the same time, we've enlisted an aviation public aviation firm called Oliver Wyman to take an in-depth look at understanding the root causes and what we need to do. That report will be back in weeks, not months. And you've got my commitment, and our customers have my commitment to do anything it takes to make sure that this does not happen again.
That conversation coming as Southwest today says the company lost $220 million last quarter, the same quarter where it canceled like 17,000 flights when its computer system couldn't process all the flight changes. That left millions of people stranded. Tom Costello is joining us now. And Tom, we're hearing from Southwest now in that exclusive interview with Lester about what they plan to do. They have things that they say they will do to try to fix this. Is it going to make a difference?
It better. I mean, the reputation's on the line here, and the bottom line is they have lost a lot of confidence with the traveling public. A lot of people have been very loyal, of course, to Southwest, only preferring to travel with them all the time. But then they were so let down. First of all, it's not just this time. It was last summer also. Remember the debacle then? Yes. And then this debacle where their computer system went down and they had to literally input all of your information manually. I mean, that really is junior league, and they've got to up their game. And if they don't, they may lose passengers permanently.
They're encouraged, the CEO says today, by what people are doing as far as booking, like in March, for example. What are you hearing from people? Are folks ready and eager to get back on Southwest? Full disclosure, I'm supposed to be flying them next month because, you look at the times, you look at the prices, you make a decision here.
Every single airline CEO I talk to says it's amazing. People will always choose a fare that's just $1 cheaper. $1, that's it. And so they are very price sensitive. Yeah. That said, I've talked to people who said, I'm not going to be that quick to book on Southwest. I mean, they've let me down so dramatically over the holidays, and the issues were not a one-off. You just can't blame this on snow and ice. Their entire computer system failed. That's right. And then their entire model, according to some, not everybody, according to some, their model is suspect. They don't use a hub and spoke system like all the other big airlines, right? They essentially go point to point to point. That's it. But if they have a problem, they don't have necessarily at that airport a deep reservoir and a bench of other pilots and flight attendants and planes that they can pull out if they have to cancel a flight. Whereas if you're in Atlanta and your Delta flight is canceled, they've got a pretty deep reservoir and a bench to immediately backfill.
pulled back, right? Because you talk about Delta, a lot of profits they reported last quarter. Same thing for United. When it comes to the airline industry writ large, is it looking good for them this coming year?
Yeah, very good. I mean, listen, every airline CEO tells me that the numbers are solid, that their planes are booked solid. There are fewer planes, though, flying than before the pandemic, fewer today than before the pandemic. In theory, the same number of seats, but fewer flights. So what does that mean? It means your plane is going to be full, but they are flying full. There just aren't as many planes, right? You understand my point? In other words, if you got 100 people flying,
yes, I understand your point,
and then you kind of, in other words, you can kind of diversify. You put it up on different planes. So your plane is going to be full. But yeah, the challenge is going to be for those airlines to not lose the customers, the loyal customers like Southwest may have.
Tom,
of course you got my point. You always get every.
Do I ever drop one of your points?
No, you're always on top of everything.
You. Thank you, really. I mean, this is a fascinating conversation. You talk to a lot of airline CEOs. Lester's got that conversation tonight. We're going to be seeing more of that on Nightly News, 6:30 Eastern, however you watch your local NBC. Thanks, Tom.
You bet.
To our exclusive newsmaker interview now, broadcast exclusive right here on this show. My conversation with the head of global affairs for Meta, Nick Clegg, on their high-profile decision to let former President Trump back on company platforms, on Facebook and on Instagram. Remember, the former president's been banned for more than 2 years after what happened at the Capitol, the attack there, the insurrection, with the news of his reinstatement coming not long before Mr. Trump's first stop on his presidential campaign. So what about the rationale? What else was behind that decision? What does it mean for the future of Meta? Watch. In Meta's view, you've determined that in this current security environment, risk has sufficiently receded. But I wonder, because just this month we saw a self-proclaimed Trump supporter and election denier get arrested for plotting to shoot the homes of 4 Democratic officials. How can you say that in this country the risk of political violence has receded?
I think what we're essentially doing is comparing it to the circumstances which led to his 2-year suspension in the first place. In other words, the circumstances in January 2 years ago, at the time of the January 6th events on the Capitol. And at that time, Washington, D.C. was under a curfew. Government offices were closed and under heavy security protection up and down the country. The National Guard was being called out from state to state. That, thankfully, is no longer the case. I'm not saying everything is perfect. No one is. But we're saying that if you compare it to the circumstances which led to his original suspension, we think the risk to public safety has materially and significantly receded. But that is also the reason why we are introducing those additional guardrails to discourage him from breaking our rules going forward if he chooses to use Facebook and Instagram again.
Is Mr. Trump, Nick, being held to a different standard than other users?
Yes, because he was suspended for 2 years. Under our policies, some of the guardrails that I have sort of set out, namely ranging from a 1-month suspension or to a 2-year suspension, or restricting the circulation, the distribution of his posts in certain circumstances. Those are things that we apply to public figures who have been sanctioned and suspended by us at a time of great public unrest.
Did anyone from Meta, in fact, meet with anybody from Mr. Trump's team? And did those conversations play a part in the decision that you're announcing today?
No, we had no meetings, and there were no discussions held, and nor should there be.
Did Twitter's decision to reactivate Mr. Trump's account play at all a part in the decision that Meta is making here?
No, not at all.
So are election fraud lies enough to get Mr. Trump potentially suspended again? Is that the bar that Meta would be looking at here?
So we will introduce measures to restrict the ability for former President Donald Trump, if he seeks to try and use our apps, Instagram and Facebook, to delegitimize the upcoming election.
It sounds to me like what you are saying is, if former President Trump delegitimizes the next election by lying about it, that's not enough to get him suspended. He'd have to go further and do something that you believe would create real world and imminent harm.
Yes, there's a distinction between accuracy and harm. People talk nonsense on the internet all the time. People say things which are half true, which are not true at all. We're not a truth police, never have been and will never seek to be. What we do have an obligation and a responsibility is to make sure that people don't use our apps and our services in a way which can lead to real world harm, violence, and so on. And that's where we draw the line.
Nick Clegg from Meta in that newsmaker interview. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the North Korean capital is under a 5-day anti-epidemic lockdown, according to the Russian embassy in Pyongyang and a South Korean-based news agency. Why? There's apparently a lot of flu there, along with some other respiratory illness. Not word yet on what that one is. North Korea has acknowledged its first COVID outbreak. They acknowledged that last year, but they said the pandemic was over just a couple months later. Number 2, California Democrat Adam Schiff, member of Congress, says he will aim for the other chamber next year, the Senate. He's joining what's expected to be a very crowded and fascinating primary of people hoping to win over the seat of Senator Dianne Feinstein. She is 89 years old, and a spokesperson says she will announce her decision on whether to run again sometime in the coming months. We'll see. Number 3, Chipotle says it's trying to hire 15,000 new employees ahead of what it's calling burrito season. You're familiar with burrito season, right? I mean, I wasn't, but the company says it's March to May. It's busiest time of the year, so they need to staff up for all the people craving Chipotle burritos. Number 4, the group behind the Razzie Awards is apologizing for nominating a 12-year-old girl for Worst Actress. What is that? So the Razzies, do you know them? They're like a parody of Hollywood award shows. They always nominate people who they think gave the worst performances. But like a 12-year-old girl, people were not happy when they picked the actress from the movie Firestarter. That's messed up, man. The group removed her nomination and says it's only going to nominate actors 18 and older. Yeah, you think? Number 5, don't look up. An asteroid is going to fly super close to Earth tonight. It's the size, roughly, of a delivery truck. It's going to zoom right over South America. Nothing to worry about. NASA says there's no chance of it hitting us. If it were to hit us, you wouldn't be watching this broadcast. We'd be elsewhere. When we come back, Russia now responding to the U.S. and Germany's decision to send tanks to Ukraine with an attack. We've got the latest from Kharkiv live next. Plus, what else we're learning about President Biden's plans to mark 1 year of the war and a possible surprise overseas trip. A bit of breaking news into us here with NBC News now confirming the National Archives is asking all living past presidents and vice presidents to do an assessment to see if they, too, might have any classified material that might be somewhere it shouldn't be. This is after officials have found misplaced materials or classified materials, period, at the homes of President Biden, former President Trump, and former Vice President Mike Pence. Kristen Walker is live for us at the White House here. So this means Presidents Obama, Bush, Clinton, they're all going to have to go back, triple check now to make sure they don't have something that they shouldn't, yeah?
That's absolutely right, Hallie. And let me just read you some key excerpts from the letter that was sent out to these past administrations, because it really encapsulates this latest data point in this controversy swirling around classified documents. It says the PRA, the Presidential Records Act, requires that all presidential records of every administration from Reagan onward must be transferred to NARA, regardless of classification status, Hallie. So this letter asks, they say, we therefore request that you conduct an assessment of any materials held outside of the national records that relate to the administration for which you serve as a designated representative under the Presidential Records Act to determine whether bodies of materials previously assumed to be personal in nature might be inadvertently contain presidential or vice presidential records, again, regardless of classification, Hallie. This is a significant development. Now, we did reach out to the administrations of former Presidents Obama, Clinton, and Bush, and they all say that they did not have any classified records. But again, this letter now going out to all of those administrations past, and they are going to have to triple and quadruple check to make sure that they are accurate, Hallie. This is a significant development in this ongoing story that we're watching.
It also comes on top of news that we heard from the FBI director today, Chris Wray, for the first time publicly speaking about this documents issue, basically saying that the rules are there for a reason and that people need to be conscious, in his words, of those rules, Kristen. This is part of a call now that you are hearing on both sides of the aisle for perhaps change in a systemic way to the way that these materials are held, are stored, et cetera, by these top officials. The other interesting note here, this does not include former President Carter, right? I believe the date would be after Carter left office.
That's right. This would be after Carter left office. And I think that the quote that you read from Chris Wray is an important one, Hallie, because I think it underscores what we're hearing from law enforcement officials, which is that no one is above the law, that this is something that relates to Democratic and Republican administrations, that no one is above essentially going back and looking through their records. And that is significant. But you have lawmakers, Hallie, Democrats and Republicans saying this system is broken. Something needs to change. We need to go back to the drawing board because the nation's top officials are mishandling the nation's most sensitive secrets. And that is a potential national security problem, Hallie.
Kristen Walker, live for us there on the North Lawn. Kristen, great to see you. Thank you. NBC News Today is learning President Biden is thinking about going to Europe next month to mark 1 year since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Sources tell us that several locations are being considered, including Poland, which, of course, is right on the border with Ukraine. It comes as Russia is launching more missile strikes across Ukraine again today. These are some new pictures here. Look at this. This is the damage being done in Zaporizhia. 11 people killed there today. With the attacks coming one day after the U.S. and allies said they'd be sending those high-tech advanced tanks to help the Ukrainians. Raf Sanchez is joining us now. And Raf, there is a lot of new NBC News reporting around this, right? Starting with the president's potential visit to Europe. No final decision has been made yet, but clearly this would be, I think, symbolically important to Ukrainians who have now, who are now approaching the mark of living 365 days with this war.
365 days of war, Hallie. Yeah, it would certainly be symbolic if President Biden came here for the anniversary here to Europe, not to Ukraine. The Ukrainian people, I think, would appreciate the symbolism. Hallie, if you ask both ordinary Ukrainians, Ukrainian officials, what would they really appreciate? They'll tell you American F-16 fighter jets, yes, long-range missile systems. They're shooting for the moon, Hallie. John Kirby, the national security spokesman, saying yesterday he doesn't begrudge the Ukrainians for asking for these kinds of weapons, given that this is an existential fight for this country's future. I don't think we're going to see F-16s handed over to the Ukrainians anytime soon. But, Hallie, it's really interesting. Everybody is thinking about the symbolism of the one-year anniversary. And you can bet the Kremlin is thinking about it, too, because they do not have a great story to tell the Russian people at this point. This war was supposed, this technical special military operation, as the Kremlin refers to it, was supposed to be over in a couple of days. And instead, 1 year on, the Russians have certainly taken territory in the east of this country, but they have not toppled the government of President Zelensky, and they have not taken over this country, Hallie.
The retaliation factor for Russia as it relates to Ukraine receiving some of these advanced weapons, the Abrams tanks, eventually the Leopard 2 tanks, perhaps much sooner than that. How much of what we saw today and the sort of damage that we've seen and we were showing viewers, how much of that is a response to the tank move?
Yeah, that's certainly how it's being interpreted here. We haven't heard from Vladimir Putin today, but people here on the ground in Ukraine certainly believe that this is him speaking with missiles. This is him sending an unmistakable message. Just hours, really, after President Biden spoke at the White House, those Iranian drones started landing on cities here in Ukraine, followed by that massive wave of missiles. And, Hallie, if there is any good news on this very, very bloody day here in Ukraine, you mentioned 11 people killed. If there's any good news, the Ukrainian Air Force is saying of those 55 missiles that were launched, 47 of them were shot down. So the Ukrainian air defense systems do seem to be holding up. The main target here was power infrastructure, as it's been in the past. You can see, Hallie, it is below freezing here, and the Russians appear to be trying to cripple the power system in the depths of winter. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez, live for us there in Kharkiv. Raf, thanks for being on the ground for us. Coming up, cosmetics company Tarte is trending for mixed reasons, let's say. How it's responding to criticism over a super fancy influencer trip. We're getting into that next. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Southeast Bureau, police in North Carolina are investigating after they say they found a few, look at this, razor blades on the handles of gas pumps. They've apparently been found in a couple of locations. Officers are warning people there to check the handles before grabbing onto them. From our Northeast Bureau, a 29-year-old woman in New Jersey is facing charges after she allegedly posed as a high school student. Police say she lied on her birth certificate to enroll in school, and she'd been going to classes, pretending to be a teenager for days. No idea why she did it, but a school official has told students to stop all contact with her. From our Western Bureau, kind of a serve, officials at a park in Boulder say they've got hundreds of the same selfies of this bear. The park was trying to track animals with some motion capture cameras and said animals don't usually notice them. This bear sure did. It's just, I mean, like, it's just very slay. Let's be real. Love that bear. Speaking of slay, maybe, Tarte Cosmetics is getting on TikTok to respond to backlash over its recent over-the-top influencer trip to Dubai. Have you been on TikTok? If you have an FYP, like a For You page, you've probably seen content from this trip. Tarte reportedly invited tons of influencers, dozens of them, gave them all +1s to this all-expense-paid trip. It did not look cheap. And so Tarte got some heat for that, right? Like, in this economy? Okay, so what did Tarte do next? You're watching it. The company posted this video on TikTok saying, POV, when you show up for work, but the marketing team spent all of our money on a brand trip. Based on the comments, people seem to like it. One person said, this ad makes me want to buy Tarte more than any influencer trip would. We reached out for the company for comment on this. We have not heard back. Blaine Alexander is joining us to break this all down. We are in the age of the influencer, Blaine, and what I feel like hits the bar here for something that is worth talking about on news is the idea that this is a company, this is marketing in the Gen Z era, right? Like, this is a company taking backlash and turning it from potential cancellation, right, into a meme that people are now applauding here. Talk us through that.
You know, and I think what's interesting about this, Hallie, is it really kind of raises this discussion of what makes an influencer, right? And a lot of people would argue that it's relatability. And, you know, that people are kind of drawn to influencers because, hey, I can relate to you. I kind of understand. When you take a massive trip like this to Dubai, it kind of wipes that away. And so that's why there was so much conversation and some would say so much backlash over this. You know, some numbers were putting these totals of people flying a rather lavish airline, business class, some $22,000 per ticket. You and I probably don't do that. So that takes away the relatability there. But yes, some people saying that it was tone deaf in an economy like this to fly people out. So certainly some backlash for them.
And then they took that backlash, and they made fun of it, basically. They didn't hide from it.
Maureen Kelly, the CEO, put out a TikTok video of her own, basically saying POV when you wake up and you realize you fired your entire marketing department. So yes, some people were commenting, some people were calling it iconic, hilarious, really kind of bringing it back. But she made that point in an interview. When you talk about advertising, right, to a new generation, she says it's really nothing different than some people taking their marketing dollars and buying a Super Bowl ad or paying a big name celebrity like Tom Brady, for instance, to endorse your product. They decided to take their pot of money and do something different. It's causing backlash, but it's also causing a lot of conversation. And I think what people say, no press is bad press, it's certainly ginning up a lot of discussion for Tarte today. Hallie.
I mean, sure is. Blaine Alexander, it's like a corporate story, it's a generational story. There's a lot to it. Blaine, thank you. Still to come, if you are pregnant and very online, you might have heard with the girl with the list. She sparked a ton of talk about pregnancy and women's health, but we're going to separate with the reality check how you can make sure what you're seeing and hearing is true when we come back. If you've come across anything online about having kids and looked at the comments, there's probably at least one person, at least on TikTok there, asking, where's the girl with the list? And you might be thinking, what list? What girl? It's this really extensive list of the pros and cons of pregnancy and childbirth. More cons than pros. You can see Uni, the person behind the account that has hundreds of cons, right? Stuff like, you know, the things that maybe you don't hear about when you go to have a child. Her videos creating this bigger conversation about a more honest approach to sometimes the kind of not so great side of pregnancy and birth, things that you might not have learned in health class or maybe even from your doctor. There are now tons of accounts making their own lists too. NBC News spoke with one TikTok creator and mom who says the list can be a powerful tool for self-advocacy, but like everything on the internet, it is not without some criticism. Dr. Jessica Shepard joins us now. She's an OBGYN, Chief Medical Officer at Verywell Health. Dr. Shepard, it's good to be with you tonight. And let me just level with people here, right? I have a friend group that is incredibly honest and was incredibly honest about childbirth and about pregnancy, like to the point where I was like, is there anything good? I mean, people don't talk about you're basically going to have your period for like 6 weeks. You are going to wear an adult diaper for 10 days, right? Like that's just the reality of it. And the list The list on TikTok talks about some of these things. And it's creating this conversation about, hey, like, we've got to be more honest on some of this stuff. It's not rainbows and puppies all the time.
It is not rainbows and puppies all the time. And I think that when I went through the list myself, I could see the validity of some of the points that were brought up. But then from a provider side, I was like, well, how do we make sure that these are discussed in the visit, but not making people scared of being pregnant?
And also, because there are some critics who say this kind of fuels some fear-mongering. There might even be some misinformation here. We're showing something like pregnancy can make your teeth fall out, right? There's lots of things on there. And listen, yes, postpartum depression, something we should absolutely be talking about. But there's a lot more on this list that people are like, well, wait a second, like, this is coming from a perspective.
Yeah, I think that there are individual perspectives, but there's also individualized accounts and situations that occur during pregnancy that someone should not say, this is going to specifically happen to me. And that's where the conversation should start. So I don't think that it's an abnormal thing to look through a list like this, but I also want people to understand that that list can probably go through a population of a number of amount of women and not necessarily their pregnancy for themselves.
Do you get questions from patients, as somebody who is a provider here, about stuff like this that they see online? How much is this coming up? How much are people coming to you and saying, hey, Dr. Shepherd, is this true?
I think that there are a lot of women who are concerned. You know, pregnancy is a very vulnerable state, and there are a lot of unknowns. So in those unknowns, you have to know, how does this pertain to me? And so when they go to the provider, that is the appropriate time to be asking the questions. Hey, I read this online. Is that going to happen to me? Because you do want the evidence and you want the research behind that. And someone who's respected in the field of pregnancy, such as an OBGYN or a midwife, to give you the correct information and make your pregnancy successful.
Knowledge is power. Dr. Jessica Shepherd. Dr. Shepherd, it's great to see you. Thank you very much for being with us. That does it for us this hour. More, of course, for you here tomorrow. Same time, same place. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.